Luz, cámara y acción. What's happening, La Familia YouTube? I'm back. I'm back, baby. It's me. It's Jason. And I'm back. Sorry, I was a little too energetic. Guys, I got to level with you, man. I just filmed a whole pod and realized that this mic was not on. It was actually going through my camera. And I was like, dude, no. I got to keep it consistent. So let's do this again. Anyways, by the way, La Familia YouTube, you're going to see me chasing down this microphone a lot. Okay? A lot during this. Because anytime I do this, because it feels a lot comfortable like this, see what it's doing? That's what it does. It just falls down. And I got to chase this bitch. So if you see me doing that, mind your business. Mind your business. Anyways, La Familia YouTube. So we are back. This is episode 2 of the Talking Techwear podcast. And again, as I said in my last video, by the way, I got to make sure I got the shot. You know what I mean? Make sure I look beautiful for you guys. But as I said in my last video, I am not married to that name. If you have any ideas, let me know and comment down below if you got ideas, and I'll maybe cyber chat. Oh, that might be a good one. Might have changed the cyber chat. But anyways, if you have any ideas, comment down below. And I don't know, maybe I'll use one of them. And if we use one of your ideas, then I will make sure I credit you every episode. So anyways, La Familia YouTube, we have another episode where I'm going to kind of ramble a little bit because there's a little bit more, I guess, what's the word I'm looking for? It's a little bit more housekeeping I need to do. There's a few things I didn't cover and a few things I didn't elaborate on in my last video. So I kind of want to start with talking about when, like I said, when seeing the Yeezy season 1 iconic video. By the way, too, I'm going to make sure that I don't move away from this mic too much because I noticed in my last episode, I kept doing this and you couldn't really hear me. So yeah, I'm going to make sure that I try not to do that. The problem is I get so excited and I talk with my hands a lot. So it's really hard to stay like stationary like this. So let me adjust this mic a little bit. Sorry if you can hear that in your headphones or whatever it is you may be listening to this on or watching it on or streaming it to your television, etc. If you are streaming it to your television, hopefully I look great. But because I don't feel like I look that great today because I pretty much just woke up and working and all that stuff. But anyways, take a shot every time I say anyways. Take a shot every time I say techwear. Please don't die of alcohol poisoning, though, because you will hear those two words a lot. So let's talk about the Kanye West thing. So when I first saw the Yeezy season 1 picture. So basically what I was saying about that, the reason why he kind of indirectly was the one is because that picture kind of implanted something in my brain as far as like, oh, this is eventually what I want to go to. The reason why at the time it was eventual was because at that point, as far as anything Yeezy, we're talking 2016, anywhere between 2015 and 2017. That was like the golden years of the Yeezy thing. That was when streetwear became what we know it as today. Like he's a big part of that, and as problematic as I think he can be sometimes. He is the reason probably for a lot of us getting into more modern fashion. But but the thing is, reason why it had to be eventual was because you could not afford any of those pieces at the time. Like they were affordable when they first came out if you were lucky to actually cop any of the shoes or the clothes for that matter at the time. But like if you weren't able to, like if you wanted them bad enough, you're pretty much looking at $1,000 at least. Okay. At least. Remember I said that the 750s were like $3,000. Okay. So at least you're looking at anywhere from $700 to $1,000. I think I saw one of the Yeezy season 1, just a t-shirt, just a plain, distressed looking t-shirt. And I remember at the time I found one I don't know if it was Goat. I don't know. I can't remember. It was on one of those apps, and the cheapest price I could find was $700 for the T-shirt. Like, put that in perspective. So yeah. So, but like I said, though, seeing that picture implanted in my brain, what I eventually wanted to go to, and then obviously it indirectly led me to techwear. So I want to add more to my techwear journey. So one thing I didn't elaborate on in the last video was I didn't elaborate on how the pandemic was probably another, between Kanye West and the pandemic was also another big reason why I went to techwear. Let me take a drink of water real quick. Because I'm going to be long-winded as fuck on this one. Anyways, so I remember when, so like I said, I discovered it around 2020. And as I said in my last video, I was just kind of scrolling through the techwear hashtags, etc., because I became very fascinated with it when I found that one Menlo Club post, out of all posts. Because at the time I didn't know anything about like acronym, with the exception of like the acronym Prestos, which are right back here actually. If you don't know what those are, these are acronym Prestos. But those were actually also very popular in like the hypebeast streetwear thing. So I did know about those, but I didn't know about acronym as a company and like what their vision was, et cetera, et cetera. So that's why it was the Menlo Club post that was weirdly the catalyst. But so when I was looking through some of the hashtags, I noticed one big part of techwear was mask. And I was like, oh, we're all wearing masks anyways right now, And I was just kind of like, yeah, man, like the mask actually look really cool with these outfits. You know what I mean? And then I'm like, the other thing I thought about too is that I'm like, I'm thinking, sitting here looking at this stuff, see the mask, and I'm like, wait a minute, dude, we're in the middle of a pandemic right now. Like, we're literally living in a real cyberpunk dystopian future movie. Like, this is what we're living right now is exactly what movies are made of. Of cyberpunk movies are pretty much made of, the nucleus of most of them. So like I kind of started thinking to myself, along with when I was looking at myself in the mirror, with the Fear of God Essential stuff, and kind of thinking, what are you wearing? I also started noticing at that time, that was when the hype beast, I shouldn't say hype beast, but more of the streetwear, again, the regular streetwear zeitgeist started kind of transitioning into like this vintage t-shirt and vintage Y2K, late 90s, early 2000s movement. And I got to be honest with you guys, and this is going to be a little bit of a hot take, and I apologize to anybody who loves wearing vintage t-shirts and, and trying to find, vintage Y2K clothes. Like, if that's your thing, that's your bag, power to you, bless you. I am not making fun. This is just my opinion, and I'm just some dude who, is just talking about a very niche style of fashion and is probably never going to go anywhere in life. So please don't take my opinion as any kind of gospel whatsoever. But at the time, I started noticing how like the street fashion started taking this turn into like this Y2K late 90s thing. And I got to be honest, I fucking hated it. Like, I hate it. I just was just like, what are we doing? Like, why are we, listen, nostalgia is a hell of a drug. I get that. I am somebody that loves the 80s. Like, as far as like past decades, I think the 80s was great, but I really feel like it's because the 80s still appeals to my love of futurism. Now, if you guys look at like the 80s, especially from like 1983, actually you can even say even 1981, because even music started taking more of a synthesized turn in the early 1980s, like even late 70s, even when you look at bands like the Cars and like Gary Newman and so like these are old names, by the way, but look these bands up and you'll see what I'm talking about. But music became even more synthesized. Music started to become very angular. technology was kind of at the helm of music. And then that also kind of trickled into 80s fashion. Like if you look at a lot of like 80s bands, like Flock of Seagulls, just for example, look those guys up. They literally look like they were trying to look like they came from like the year 3000. So I think one of the biggest reasons why I love the 80s is because the 80s were trying to be futuristic. They were trying to predict what the future was going to look like 40, 50 years down the road. So maybe that's why I gravitate to the 80s. Maybe that's why that's the one decade I stay nostalgic for, even though I was tiny in the 80s. Like I was basically just still swimming in my dad's nutsack. But I think that's why I love it, because it was a very synthesized decade in every way, shape, or form. And they were even trying to do it in their clothing style. So now a lot of it looks kind of ridiculous today. And who knows, maybe we could say the same thing for techwear. Maybe 20 years down the road, we're going to look back on these techwear pictures and go, damn, we thought that was futuristic. I doubt that though. But yeah, so anyways, nostalgia is a hell of a drug. I get that. But here's my problem with, especially with what's going on with the Y2K style. So I give you an example. I'm going to say one thing and I'm going to give you an example. Let me say this. When decades are transitioning, especially when you see it with fashion, when decades are just transitioning into new decades, the fashion is always very weird, because you can still see that people are incorporating elements of the previous decade and then incorporating the new elements of what's going on / what's going to happen from the newer decade. So it's like this weird transitional period that happens. I'll give you an example. So I was watching this obscure movie from 1980. Okay. And, when I was watching it, I was like, this is so strange. Like some of these people look like they're still living in the 1970s. So there was like still people wearing like bell bottoms and afros, but then you saw some people with like little hits of neon and skinny ties and stuff like that looked like they were from the 80s, or what was going to eventually evolve into what is 80s style. And I remember watching going, this is really weird. Even when there was something I watched from like the year like 2001 a couple days ago, and it was funny how like some of the characters had like kind of 90s-ish clothes on, and then you saw some that were adopting the newer styles of the 2000s, which would later become like bootcut jeans and bedazzled jeans and stuff like that. So yeah, man, like I kind of hate it. I hate it. I hate it. What's going on? I hate that that's what's going on now. And I don't know. I was looking at all of this, and then I was discovering techwear, and I was just like, wait a minute, what are we doing? We're literally in the middle of a pandemic. We're literally living an actual cyberpunk movie right now, or a post-apocalyptic-ish, situation scenario. I mean, look at climate change, which is kind of scary, actually. I mean, look at just, for example, Lake Mead in Nevada. I mean, dead bodies from mafia days are turning up because the water is literally drying out. Like we're in the future. We're in a dystopian future. We're living what Philip K. Dick and, I can't remember the author of Neuromancer, but we're literally living what these guys predicted what was going to happen. So I kind of thought to myself, we need to look the part. We need to. And now it's kind of a fucked up scenario to kind of play make-believe, so to speak. And I know that seems kind of weird, but I guess I call it making the best out of a bad situation. But I was just like, we need to look the part. We need to look like the fucking future. It's 2020. You guys, everybody, it's 2020. Like, why are we wearing stuff from the Y2K days and like the late 90s? Like, it's 2020. It's time to stop rehashing different decades, when it comes to fashion. You know what I mean? Now, don't get me wrong. There are things that you can take from each of those decades that are actually good. You know what I mean? And then incorporate it and then kind of evolve it. But that's not happening. People are literally trying to look like that. And I notice that happens every 5 to 10 years or so. They say like there's always a circle. And I guess it's probably easy for me to say, because a lot of the people that are adopting these vintage, I put in quotes, styles of fashion are people in their, early 20s. And I've lived the decades that they're trying to mimic now. So maybe I look back at it and scoff and go, God damn it, why are you doing this? You know how bad that was? You know? But anyways, so like I said, I saw techwear as a more forward style of fashion. And like, and even looking at, to kind of like add to why techwear, I love techwear so much, is it's because of what it's trying to do. Like designers like, Errolson Hugh from Acronym, Gracia from Rosen X, which is a smaller techwear company that's amazing, and we'll talk about them down the road. What's another really good? I can't think of them. I can't think of a third one right now. That I had a third one in my head. But anyways, just looking at examples of those clothing companies, like these are people that are fans of cyberpunk and that genre. So they're trying now. What they're doing is they're taking what they've seen in movies and stuff like that, and they're trying to even make that more forward. So in a weird way, like techwear it was like, dude, this is going to be a timeless style of fashion because it's going to always be evolving, and it's always going to be evolving forward because the whole thing of it aesthetically is about futurism, So yeah. So in 2020, when we had to wear a mask and we were literally in a, dystopian cyberpunk, scenario, I was like, dude, this situation sucks. Might as well look the part. Might as well live it and look it. So yeah. So the pandemic was a big part of, how I got into wearing this style of clothes, and actually in conjunction, I want to, again, like I said, this is going to be an extension of my techwear journey, this episode, to further add to that, what I was talking about with those companies, like Acronym and Rosen X and Anfin Levy. That's the company I was thinking of. Them taking what they've seen in movies and stuff like that and trying to make it into real life. Like I think a big reason too I gravitated to techwear is because I'm getting older, and one thing I have done, like most young people, is especially young people that are into fashion, but we chase trends. You know what I mean? And I thought to myself, I'm like, this is something I even thought to myself during the whole, when I was, sport rocking the whole like hype beast and fear of God stuff. And I was kind of like, dude, I don't want to chase trends anymore. Like I really don't. I want to find my forever fashion. I want to find something that I can settle into that's never going to go out of style and that I'm always going to, for the most part, look good in. God willing, whoever that may be. I say universe willing rather. But yeah, hopefully I'll find a style that I can settle into and evolve within that style and not chase trends. I think that's another problem I have too with the whole rehashing of decades of fashion, is because like we're chasing old trends. When you really think about it, that's not what's productive about that. Nothing. We're chasing old trends. There's nothing productive about chasing old trends. So like that's another reason why what I like about techwear is that it's a very productive style of fashion. You know what I mean? Now, Rick Owens is not exactly a productive style of fashion, but we're going to touch on him in just a moment here. It's not a productive style of fashion, but it is a timeless style of fashion. I'll talk about that in a moment. But yeah, so I want to go back to what I was saying. So when it comes to like these designers that are forward thinkers, I was like, I'm trying to find my forever style. These people are trying to always be ahead of the curve. And what's more timeless than always being ahead? You know what I'm saying? These people are taking what they've seen in cyberpunk movies, what the writers and directors and stuff like that thought the future is going to like. They're taking that and they're making it, okay, well, here's what the future looks like now. We're going to tell you what it's going to look like, 10 years down, 30 years down the road, which is what's great, especially about the three designers that I mentioned. So yes, I'm trying to find my forever style because I'm getting older and I don't want to chase trends anymore. And I'm damn sure not going to chase old trends, like I said. So yeah, so like that's what I'm talking about. So what do I mean by forever style? Like I said, it's something that I can just settle into that's going to never go out of style. And I feel like techwear is that because it's always ahead of the curve. It's a very productive style of fashion, not only in its aesthetic, but also too, it's a very productive style of fashion because, like I said, the designers who make them are always thinking about what the future is going to look like and how clothes is going to fit into our future. You know what I mean? And technologically speaking, speaking of timeless style. So like I was saying, we'll talk about Rick Owens. Now, Rick Owens is his, and by the way, if you don't, people who are just stumbling over this podcast, if you're just stumbling over this and you're just like, what the hell is techwear? Techwear is basically functional clothing. Typically, it's functional utilitarian clothing. So it's basically clothing that not only aesthetically looks very futuristic, but also too, it has a functional purpose. Most techwear clothes you'll see are made out of waterproof materials or water resistant materials because a lot of it's meant for walking and being outside, and it's derived from outdoor and athleisure fashion, basically. So that's what techwear is. It's a very functional fashion. But Rick Owens, even though Rick Owens isn't functional per se, and even though, it isn't a productive style of fashion, it is a timeless style of fashion. And I didn't even know anything about Rick Owens until I started getting into the techwear world, because a lot of people that I follow, I noticed that they incorporated a lot of Rick Owens pieces in their techwear fits. And I remember the first time I saw a pair of Geo baskets. I still want those shoes to this day. They are on my grails list and I'm working toward getting those. But seeing, that, I was like, oh my gosh. So then I found out about Rick Owens stuff. And obviously you guys know the first episode I did a Rick Owens unboxing, or a couple of Rick Owens pieces. But one thing, because I didn't know much about Rick Owens, I started researching him a little bit, and I actually tripped over this video. And it blew my mind. I tripped over this video of Rick Owens from 1988, you guys. We're talking 34 years ago. 34 years ago? Yeah, 34 years ago, I think that is. Rick Owens, in this video in 1988, he's talking to some MTV VJ person. And even then, in 1988, his style that he was wearing in that video, he looked like he was from the year 2025 or something. Like he was already, again, very forward thinking, very retro. And cool thing about Rick Owens that he does very well, in my opinion, is he executes retro futurism amazingly. Like he covers like a whole, Whoa, geez. He covers like a whole spectrum of decades and still makes it somehow look futuristic in a way. So yeah, it's another big reason why I'm a big fan of Rick Owens style. But then, like I said, I had no idea that even he had been around for that long. This guy's been doing this for almost 40 years, and somehow his pieces are still timeless. So again, that's what I'm talking about by sliding into my forever style. Just kind of sit comfortably in a style that I can evolve within said style without having to chase trends anymore. Because chasing trends, although it used to be fun when I was a much younger man, it is fucking exhausting just to chase trends. And if you are a young person that thinks chasing trends is exhausting, comment down below, let your boy know. So, yeah, man. So anyways, this is a good segue. That, by the way, that ends the techwear journey talk. I'm sure there'll be different things that I'll remember over time as I have guests on the show and things like that. But with that being said, one of the things I'm gonna wrap it up here. I think it's a little bit shorter today, but next week I got a special treat for you. But we're gonna get to that in a moment. One thing I'm gonna say is, one of the questions I'm going to ask when I have guests on the show is I'm going to ask them what techwear means to them. Now, I know you guys are probably like, Jesus, dude, calm down. Like, it's just a style of clothing. Listen, clothing is more important than you think. It's the first thing people are going to see on you. Your all-encompassing first impression. So clothing is more important than you think, and it says a lot about who you are. And I've always felt that way about fashion. It tells people what you're into. It tells people how you value the way you look, like et cetera, et cetera. But what techwear means to me is exactly what I was talking about when I was talking about those designers. It's about forward thinking to me. Like in my opinion, it's one of the more forward thinking styles of fashion that I've ever seen throughout my whole life of being into fashion. And that's what I like about it. And I feel like because of that, because it's always trying to be ahead of the curve, it's always trying to predict what's going to come. It's always trying to predict how clothing is going to be more functional in our lifestyles, and how clothing is going to be made more functional in our lifestyles by said designers. I feel like because of that, it's going to be timeless. And I feel like that's what it means to me. And that's why I love it so much. So yeah. So anyways, sorry for the ramble. But, it's a podcast now, so I can do that. And, next week is, it's not going to be an extension of my techwear journey. That's the end of that for now. But next week, you guys, I have a very special guest for you. It's actually, as far as parasocial relationships go, and let's face it, parasocial relationships are kind of becoming the new friendships these days. And as much as I have my gripes with the internet and what it's done to our society, et cetera, it has some great things too. And that's one of those things is being able to connect with people everywhere. And one of the people I connected with is a guy on Instagram whose handle is @tiredalby. That's tired Albie, Albie spelled ALBIE, @tiredalby. And me and this guy, for the better part of, I would say, a year and a half for a while. We've been following each other on Instagram for a while, and we kind of hit it off pretty quickly, actually. We have a lot of respect for each other's style. And Albert, in my opinion, is the king of Gorpcore. So he's going to be on here next week, and we're going to chop it up. I'm sure we're going to talk about Gorpcore. We're going to talk about all kinds of stuff. And but the nucleus of that conversation is going to be, we're going to be talking about the new fall-winter Onfin Levy drop, because we've both been geeking out about it. And I just hit him up one day. I said, dude, do you want to come on my podcast and we'll talk about this and maybe look at some of our favorite pieces, etc. And he said he was down. So I'm super excited. And keep in mind, you guys, just because this podcast is mostly about techwear, it doesn't mean that that's where it's not going to be pigeonholed to just techwear. We're going to talk about all kinds of stuff. We're going to talk about life, I'm sure. We're going to talk about relationships. But at the helm of it all, or in the middle of it all, techwear is always going to be the main topic, the main nucleus of it all. So yes, I'm super excited to have him on next week, and it's going to be great. So I just want to say, you guys, like and subscribe. You want to listen to the sexy voice, all the time, because it's sexy. That was terrible. Anyways, but like, subscribe. If anything, put this on if you just want to, if you just need noise, man. You don't even have to listen to what I'm saying. Just put it on, listen to it, hang on some of the words if you want, and, just entertain yourself with my rambling. But yeah, I'm trying to get to 1,000 followers, so that's the only reason why I'm actually pushing the whole subscribe narrative. So yeah, if you guys can do that, I'm just trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. I don't care if I get more than that, but if I can get to 1,000, that would make me feel good, and that would make me feel like I have an audience, even though I have a pretty decent audience, and at least more than I ever thought I would ever have in my lifetime. And by the way, I want to just thank to all the new people that did subscribe to my channel and have been commenting on the videos. Thank you so much. I try to answer all of them, and I don't get many, so I can't answer all of them. But anyways, like, subscribe, and we'll see you next week with Albie, and I am out of here.